Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have several episodes for you this morning, and this is the first one of them. I've got 6 articles in this episode for you. All the URLs are listed in the description of this video for your convenience. The first article that I have for you is off of LibertyWritersNews.com, and it says, Trump's travel ban is over. Look what liberals just did to end it. But now, bear with me because I've got another article to follow this, and if you can keep up with all of this, you're better than I am. So we'll just start with this one. It says, while President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania took a break to Mar-a-Lago today for a charity event, liberals found a sneaky way to end his executive order banning people from terror-compromised countries from entering the United States. Judge James Robard in Seattle, Washington today ruled against government lawyers' claims that the states did not have the standing to challenge Trump's orders and said they showed their case was likely to succeed. The judge's official claim read, the state has met its burden in demonstrating immediate and irreparable injury. This ruling follows a week's worth of massive protests and lawsuits over the travel ban. The State Department said it has officially rejected 60,000 visas in the last week. Donald Trump has not yet responded to the judge's ruling, but there is little doubt that he will cut his break short to go deal with this personally. Now, the next article that I have for you, and let's see here. For some reason, it's not wanting to cooperate with me. I may have to reload this. Hang on a second. Sometimes this stuff loads correctly and sometimes it doesn't. Control, but apparently I do not. Try this one more time here. This one is off of Zero Hedge. And I'm waiting for the hamster. There we go. Judge unblocks Trump's travel ban. Ask, where does it say Muslim countries? As it appears President Trump is pleased with the judge's decision. And he sent out a tweet that says, we must keep evil out of our country. And the article reads, as we detailed earlier, in a blow to every mainstream media news outlet, and likely hurting a lot of feelings, President Donald Trump's ban on immigrants from 7 Muslim-majority countries will take effect in Boston on Sunday after a federal judge refused to extend a temporary ruling blocking its enforcement. Reports the decision by U.S. District Court on Friday dealt a setback to rights advocates who argued that blocking people from 7 nations in the Middle East was unconstitutional. Gorton was weighing whether to extend a 7-day order blocking parts of Trump's executive order. Filed by the American Civil Liberties Union on behalf of several affected immigrants is one of several that followed Trump's 27th of January order, which roiled global travel by barring entry to the U.S. of citizens of Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. Individuals, organizations, and politicians in some states it called unconstitutional religious discrimination against Muslims. News Online reports U.S. District Judge Nathaniel Gorton on Friday asked Matthew Siegel, an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, representing the plaintiffs in the Boston case, say Muslim countries. If your honor questions it, does the word Muslim make a profound presence in this executive order? My answer is that it doesn't. But the president described what he was doing to do as a Muslim ban, and then he proceeds to carry it out. Gorton shot back, am I to take the words of an executive at any point before or after election as part of that executive order? Judge Gorton on Friday asked U.S. Justice Department lawyer Joshua Press how the 7 countries had been selected. Press responded that The list had come from a law passed in 2015 and amended earlier last year, requiring that citizens of the 7 countries apply for visas to enter the United States out of concern about the refugees that were coming, mainly from Syria, and terrorist events that were occurring in Europe. As we noted previously, only 12.5% of the world's Muslims live in the 7 countries on Trump's immigration ban list. And there is a map in this. It says world distribution of Muslim population. If you want to pull that up and take a look at that at your leisure. It says, which left the judge to decide, as the full docket explains here, and there's a link to that docket if you want to see that. The language in Section 5 of the EO is neutral with response to religion. The provisions of Section 5, however, could be invoked to give preferred refugee status to a Muslim individual in a country that is predominantly Christian. Noting in Section 5 compels a finding that Christians are preferred to any other group. Gorton wrote, there is rational reason for the Trump administration's policies. The Federal Immigration and Naturalization Act gives the president broad power over immigration. A reasonably conceivable state of facts which concerns national security and that could provide a rational basis for the classification, he wrote. Accordingly, this court declines to encroach upon the delicate policy judgment inherent in immigration decisions. Order. For the foregoing reasons, the court declines to impose any injunctive relief and will not temporary restraining order that was entered on January the 29th of 2017, docket number 6. And the full order is shown here in this if you want to look at that. All I have for you is off of Conservative Tribune. Draft of executive order leaked that would deport immigrants on welfare. Claims that it has obtained copies of 2 of President Donald Trump's upcoming executive orders that, if implemented, would once and for all stop immigrants from leeching off the American taxpayer. Washington Post, the orders would reportedly deny admission to any alien who is likely to become a public charge and set up standards for determining whether an alien is deportable for having become a public charge with 5 years of entry. The underlying goal would be to make the U.S. immigration system more merit-based, so those with potential to contribute to the country would be welcome, whereas those more likely to be a burden to the American taxpayer would be kept out. To the New York Magazine, the order would also bar undocumented immigrants from assessing the child tax credit, even when their children are U.S. citizens, which would be a huge blow to illegal immigrants' families hoping to cash in on their anchor babies. Liberals have, of course, already begun complaining about these potential orders, arguing, for example, that immigrants use less welfare than the general populace. But this is a moot point. The American people want only the best and the brightest immigrating to America. Now, suppose arrives in the U.S. and winds up on welfare within the first 2 years. What does that say about him? Best and the brightest, not even close. And there's some video in this if you want to pull that up and take a look at that at your leisure. It says, according to the Center for Immigration Studies in 2012, approximately 51% of all immigrant households, this is a problem. A lot of American households also collect welfare, and that's a problem as well. But why then would the American people want to exacerbate the problem by adding more people to? The simple fact is that as a sovereign nation, the United States reserves the right to demand the very best from anyone who aspires to live here. It is a fact that the U.S. actually has more lenient immigration policies than a large number of Western countries that liberals profess to admire. Canada or Western Europe, if you don't believe it. Works hard, obtains citizenship, and leads a good life, but is later laid off and needs to collect welfare for a bit, that's one thing. But when someone immigrates here and then immediately boards the welfare train, that's another. President Trump hopes to finally resolve. What I have for you is off of Rick Wells. says, "Get out, Americans." You see not sparing liberals from replacement by foreigners. But visibly, those in California and the Bay Area think diversity and importing foreigners are great things that enable them to construct the United States into the utopia they envision. Impacts them personally until a foreign import gets their job and they have to train them to do it. This is far from the first time this has happened, with Disney, Southern California Edison, and Toys R Us being infamous for forcing their employees to train their foreign replacements. But as the report says, the incident involving the UC San Francisco and Open Borders former DHS Secretary Janet Napolitano is the first time the entity has used taxpayer money to fire Americans and hire foreign replacements. It is important to remember that this is illegal. What they are doing is expressly forbidden in the visa's regulation. The video shows Napolitano from her confirmation hearing for Homeland Security Secretary in January of 2009. In it, she responded to a question from Senator Durbin as to whether she had any opinions on the H-1B visa program. Tag replied, "Our top obligation are to American workers, making sure American workers have jobs." So her cropped he/she haircut, and apparently now under no pressure to lie about American jobs being a priority, Napolitano, as University of California president, is one foreign made in India job acts. Open Borders commie and Democrat Zoe Lofgren has also changed her tune from her customary "let them all in to take whatever jobs they want, screw the American" stance to Napolitano reversed her decision. She suddenly discovered the intent of the visa program was to supplement non-existent domestic labor, not force out applicants. Describing the actions of replacing Americans with foreign workers as a misuse of the H-1B visa, the hypocrite congresswoman said, "I think to expect our major public institutions such as the University of California to comply with both the letter and the spirit of the law." Need to comply, Lofgren, just when the cameras are on and an assault Americans in your district, how major does the employer have to be, and why are the jobs of public workers such as yourself more valuable and deserving of protection from greedy, heartless executives of workers in the private sector? The video exposes the Napolitano track record on forcing Americans out of their jobs, noting that she recently got rid of 97 employees at the UC San Francisco campus, at least one of which is now suing the university system. She claims it was necessary to outsource in order to reduce the expenses. The employee interviewed says no pay cut was offered to them. They were simply given the ultimatum, train your replacement or hit the street now. The solution might be to tie the rate of faculty and all the way to the freak at the top to the percentage difference between their average foreign visa workers and the average of Americans in the same position, dropping their current salaries by an equivalent amount hired as replacements. Just as Zoe Lofgren suddenly cared about American workers when it involved voters in her district, the staff at the university will be much more interested in finding alternatives when they share in the pain of cost-cutting measures. Once again, in the person of President Trump, he reportedly has an executive order drafted already to revamp the H-1B system, eliminating the abuse. Senator Jeff Sessions made a high priority in his career in that legislative body. This abuse of the American people is something that will not be allowed to continue in the Trump administration. It is off the Conservative Tribune. As Trump signs orders that would allow police officers to enforce immigration laws. Trump had a busy first week in office, issuing a flurry of executive actions and orders to kickstart his agenda, some of which flew under the radar of both the media and perpetually outraged liberals. Watching last week was focused on Trump's orders authorizing construction of the border wall and efforts to crack down on sanctuary cities. ABC News reported that the revival of an old program that had nearly been mothballed by the Obama administration. The program permits the Department of Homeland Security to essentially deputize law enforcement and officers to aid federal immigration laws, such as by checking an individual's immigration status through the course of the routine contact, and certainly if they've been arrested or jailed in connection with any sort of crime. More than 60 various police departments and sheriff's offices enrolled as of 2009, but President Barack Obama's administration went back and limited it significantly to the point that about half of the participants dropped out, while the rest were consigned to simply check their local jails for violent violators of immigration laws who needed to be turned over to federal agents. Former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe in Arizona was perhaps the most in the program, even if he was repeatedly harassed and sued for taking part in it. To be sure, civil rights groups and immigration advocates have decried the program and stated that they believe it will lead to an increase in racial profiling or the rights of immigrants being violated, which is what they accuse Sheriff Joe of doing. However, other groups like the Center for Immigration Studies cheered the return of the great program that accounted for nearly 20% of criminal deportations by immigration and customs officials, according to the Washington Post. And there's some video in this if you want to pull that up and take a look at that at your leisure. I'm going to try to get it to shut down here so I can go on with the news. Says the Post also reported that Trump concurrently revised the Secure Communities program, a program both started and stopped under Obama that of everyone taken into custody by law enforcement across the U.S. against a federal database of immigration records, quickly identifying those individuals who needed to be handed over to the feds for deportation. This PAC review noted that several local law enforcement agencies have already jumped at the chance to enlist the services of their officers in aiding federal immigration agents, including the Jackson County Sheriff's Office in Texas. AJ Andy Louderback cost his department roughly $3,000 to train a few of his deputies to take part in the program. Not cost it all, as he figured it would be money well spent. It just seems like a good law enforcement to partner with law enforcement in this area, said Louderback. It takes all of us to do this job. All I have in this episode is also off of Conservative Tribune, and it says, Trump sends naval assets, Iranian-friendly militia in the Middle East. Dispatched a Navy destroyer to the Gulf of Aden off Yemen to protect ships from an Iranian-backed militia that attacked a Saudi Arabian vessel this week, U.S. officials told Reuters. The USS Cole, tasked with suicidal Islamic terrorists, arrived in the vicinity of the Bab el-Mandab Strait off southwestern Yemen, where it will patrol and escort vehicles, the official said, speaking on condition of anonymity. In 2000, al-Qaeda bombers attacked the Cole while it refueled in the Yemeni port of Aden, killing 17 U.S. sailors and wounding dozens of others. Officials said, while U.S. vessels have carried out similar routine operations in the area in the past, this move increased presence in the region aimed at protecting ships from the militia known as the Houthi. Came just after President Donald Trump imposed sanctions on several individuals in Iran in response to the country's missile test last weekend, according to the New York Times. Video in this, if you want to pull that up and view that at your leisure. It says, this announcement came one day after National Security Advisor Michael Flynn said Iran had officially on notice. Also said the highly symbolic move off the coast of Yemen was decided before those comments were made. However, tensions on the Arab Peninsula have also been rising. The first U.S. service member to die in action during the Trump presidency was killed during a Navy SEAL raid on an al-Qaeda base in Yemen. Houthi militants attacked a Saudi warship coast of Yemen, killing 2 crew members. U.S. military missile strikes aimed at 3 coastal radar bases in Yemen, controlled by Houthi forces, which was retaliation after failed missile attacks against U.S. destroyer, the USS Mason. I have for you in this episode, but there'll be more to follow. Give it a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to make some comments and let me know what you think of this. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure and do that, and share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. I'll see you in the next episode.